Henry and the Elephant is the 19th episode of the 4th series based on the story of the same name from the Railway series book, Troublesome Engines. This was the start of the last sort of arc for Series 4, adapting stories that never got adapted from the previous seasons. But does this one succeed? Let's puff in and take a look. One morning, Thomas arrives at the junction. The Fat Controller is there, and after checking his watch, tells Thomas he is right on time and really reliable, making Thomas and his coaches happy. However, Gordon, Henry and James are in a bad mood. Percy is nowhere to be found, and so they must shunt their own coaches, a job they despise. James, moving onto the turntable, decides to take his anger out on Henry and mocks him about his fear of the rain. Henry retorts that James looks silly enough to be a clown and that he belongs in a circus, which leads Percy, who has just arrived, to believe the engines had heard about the circus that has come to the island. He explains that he has been helping to shunt the special trucks and coaches on the Fat Controller's orders, and that the big engines are needed too. The big engines soon forget about being tired and cross and eagerly help out. When it is time for the circus to leave, James is given the task of pulling the train away, making Gordon and Henry cross all over again. A little later, the Fat Controller informs Henry that the tunnel is blocked and asks him to take some workmen to investigate. Henry arrives at his tunnel, where he was once bricked up, with some trucks in front of him rumbling all the way. They stop just outside the tunnel and the workmen enter to examine the blockage. The tunnel is dark and quiet. Upon finding the blockage, the workmen start to dig at it, but the block grunts and moves, frightening them, and they quickly run out in horror. One explains to the foreman that the huge rubbish blockage is big and alive, and they refuse to go back inside. The foreman does not believe them, but he decides to ride in the front truck and have Henry push it out. Henry, horrified at the idea of being stuck in a tunnel with something big and alive, protests the decision, and his driver is sympathetic to him, but he tells Henry that the line must be cleared. Henry reluctantly and fearfully enters the tunnel with the trucks, only for the very strong blockage to push him and the trucks back out again. Both Henry and the foreman are surprised to discover the blockage is actually a large cross elephant who had escaped from the circus earlier. The workmen offer the circus elephant some cake and 3 buckets of water to calm him down. However, just as he is drinking the 4th bucket, Henry accidentally startles the elephant by letting off steam, which results in the elephant spraying Henry with water. The elephant and his keeper are soon reunited with each other, but Henry is most upset and humiliated by the entire incident. That night, he tells the other engines what happened. Although Gordon and James feel sorry for Henry, they still tease him a little bit. However, Thomas praises Henry for his bravery and how well he handled the situation, making Henry feel better. This episode was originally meant to take place before the events of Turners and Turntables in the Railway series, but because it never got adapted in Series 1, then we never got to see the story back then. So it was only logical for Britt Allcroft and David Mitton to adapt it for the 4th series. And Henry's incident with the elephant in the original story was one of the reasons the big engines went on strike, thus leading to Percy's arrival. But that never came to be in the TV series since the story was skipped back then. And I really enjoy how they pulled off this episode, especially with the model elephant and Henry getting sprayed with water. It's quite an amazing feat that I don't think they would have been able to pull off so well in the first series. And I love how when James pulls the circus train away, the busy theme is played with some circus music mixed into it. It's a nice little variation of the busy theme, and keeping in with the theme of the circus coming to Sodor. And this episode used to scare me when I was a kid back when I first saw it on the Story and Songs Collection VHS tape, mostly because of the workmen and Henry's reaction to the elephant in the tunnel before they know what it actually is. And for some reason when I was a kid I used to vision this scene being exactly like how it was in the Railway series illustrations, with the trunk coming out of the tunnel and Henry's scared face in the Railway series that honestly looks scarier than his TV series scared face. I don't really know why I envisioned it like that the first time I saw it, but I guess it's to do with my child mind back then, because when we're kids we often see things differently from how they actually are. And this was one of the few stories from the Railway series that I was actually read to in the book before I saw the TV adaptation. And because of that I just envisioned Henry's scared face looking like his scared face from the Railway series illustration, which I honestly thought looked even scarier than his scared face in the TV series. And I also envisioned Henry getting sprayed with water by the elephant looking exactly like it did in the illustration, compared to what it actually looked like in the TV series. It's just one of those things where your child mind sees things differently from how they actually are. And it's fairly similar to how I used to be scared of Off the Rails when I was a kid, before finally plucking up the courage to watch it again. And it's a real lovely treat to see Henry's tunnel again, because I honestly don't remember the last time we visited this location. And we also get to hear some nice nods from the sad story of Henry, that being Henry's fear of the rain.
What's the matter, Henry? There's no rain today. Stop worrying and do some work instead. I'm not afraid of getting wet anymore, huffed Henry. Anyway, you look silly enough to be a clown. You should be in a circus. First the rain, then an elephant. Whatever will you be afraid of next? Be quiet! Shut up!
And you either love or dislike the additional scenes with Thomas in the episode. And I honestly like those additional scenes, with Thomas running on time with his train and the Fat Controller praising him, then at the end when he makes Henry feel better by saying that he was brave today and really reliable. But I like the intro of the episode a lot more because it shows Thomas the Tank Engine puffing happily along his branch line and being complimented by the Fat Controller. I think it's a really nice way to start off the episode before we get into the serious bits with Henry and the elephant. And I don't really blame Brittlecroft and David Mitton for doing the additional Thomas scene at the end of the episode, because they had to do something to replace the original Railway series storyline, since the original story would have taken place before Tenders and Turntables, before the engines actually went on strike. But in the TV series they never adapted it for the first series, so they had to think of something else. And I think they managed to pull it off decently. And the episode itself has become one of the most iconic in the TV series since it first broadcast in the 90s, with toys being made based on it, books being made based on it, and even having sections of it be part of Thomas Land in Japan. It's just left that much of an impact on the fandom and the Japanese community for Thomas. Just shows how much people really love this episode, and who can blame them? Henry and the Elephant is another fun episode that I think was really decently adapted for the TV series, and that's quite a feat considering this was originally meant to take place before the Series 1 episode Tenders and Turntables but never got adapted. And I think they did a really good job of it here, and because their modelling skills have improved over the years since then, this seemed like the right time to adapt the story. And what comes as a fun episode that you definitely don't want to miss if you love Henry the Green Engine stories. It's easily among one of the funniest and most entertaining episodes.